This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Nobody said it would be easy. From the frightening canyons of Bathurst to the tricky chicanes at Zolder, the Kamel GT series is throwing everyone in at the deep end this season and hoping they can swim. This Belgian circuit has made the most patient of drivers bang at their steering wheel and left the gutsiest of racers weeping in their hands. There's no doubt that whatever A game was brought last week needs to be dragged out again as we get ready to watch round 2 of the iRacing Kamel GT series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Samuel Ryman. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Hans-joachim, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Sam, this is a not often loved circuit here on iRacing. In case some of our viewers haven't experienced this place, give them an introduction to it.
Well, isn't it nice for those viewers that they're listening to someone who actually does like a circuit? Here's Zolder. Obviously, when you think of Belgian racetracks, normally your mind is going to think of the infamous Spa-Francorchamps, but this circuit, it couldn't be more different from Spa recently, and it definitely has its own selling points. As you mentioned, Joe, lots of different chicanes that can annoy some drivers. However, it also provides us with opportunities for drama and passes, and also seeing which of these drivers can handle the massive power that these cars produce with the lack of grip the best, because it is definitely tricky getting back on the power coming out of these slow speed corners. It's about 2.5 miles in length, 10 turns. We're racing on the alternate configuration, so the final chicane of a lap isn't as slow and dramatic as what it normally is, although they still have to do like a little left-right switch back there. Let's give you a better idea of it with our GSRC lap guide.
All right, we've got Johnny Bell in the GSRC Nissan, so let's do a lap around Zolder. Erst will tempt you into braking later and later into it, but the downhill nature makes it easy to understeer wide by carrying too much speed. It's not uncommon to see people plow through the gravel runoff. Quickly, you've got to switch sides for Stedenbach, where the exit has some nasty curves that you'll want to avoid drifting into. It effectively acts as one long corner on your way through Canal, and then you're faced with one of the more critical turns, Bianchi. This is a medium-speed right-hander, but what makes it important is it leads onto the long straight down to the Kleine chicane. It's pretty common for drivers to use this to try to set up a pass into this heavy braking zone. Avoid hitting the tall sausage curbs because they'll absolutely destroy the Nissan. Bleed back on the power, and then you'll climb the crest and swing through Butte. Hug the left side because you'll want the widest entry possible into Turleman. There's 3 apexes around this fiddly little chicane, and it's easy to screw up any one of them. On top of that, you won't really get a full blast of power because there's a final banked right-hander that isn't quite flat out. Over the hump, once again, hold left, and now you've got the Boulderberg hairpin. A lot of overtakes tend to happen here, but beware of the over-under because sometimes your opponent can get you right back on the exit. It's a little weave through Rent, though watch out for wheel spin as you get up to speed. Then comes the Ich chicane. In the alternate layout, it's frighteningly fast with only a lift needed. Hold it together, get back on the power, and hopefully you've now finished a lap around Zolder. There you see a very quick lap around here at Zolder. Real quick, let's take a look at the points. There's not too much that's different from the results, of course, as we take a look at the GTPs. Fabian Gerber, of course, up at the top, followed by Fabian Jungblut. So two Fabians up there as Jamie Hall and Phil Lake come in for Dirty Torque there in 3rd and 4th. And Louis Emerton manages to get himself within the top 5. Phil Lake and Jamie Hall, of course, were on course for better finishes, but didn't have a good time at Bathurst, unfortunately. Not uncommon out there in Australia. Let's go to Sam for the GTO points, as we unfortunately don't have any of the 2 AM classes yet.
Yeah, not a whole lot of participation in the AM classes at the opening round, and as we go off that point, we're talking just pretty much about the opening round so far. These are basically the points based off of the first race of the season, so there's still lots of jumping around that can take place. The 2 Americans up top right there, with Rob Olyanek leading Nicholas Mikanos, Ove Trandre, Reed Miller and Sergey Serbin rounding out the standings. But being this early in the season, all of that can change, and they also get 2 drop weeks by the end of the year.
Exactly. So this race could have a big effect on it. Now, those drop weeks will probably be taken by a lot of drivers, which we'll talk about here in a second with the race details, because we are in round 2 out of 12. There's those 2 drop weeks that you see. The race is 40 minutes long. This is a sprint format for them. They have no scheduled stop for fuel because of that. Now, you can still come in and take repairs if you need it, but your race is going to be significantly compromised if you do so. 25 points for a win in each of the classes, of course, today. And each of these classes are being shown to you live on the iRacing Esports Network. All you got to do is subscribe, then you can get the Kamel GT series in your YouTube feed each and every week. So make sure and head over to their YouTube page, click on the big red button, and you can catch all of the action here in these classic 80s machinery. Now, I mentioned that some drivers are going to be taking drop weeks. It apparently seems, Sam, that everybody's a little bit more into Watkins Glen this morning, but no matter, we should get a good race out there.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, Zolder isn't the most popular of circuits. Maybe you can speak more to that. I think a lot of drivers feel that tracks with chicanes kind of break the flow up a little bit too much. It doesn't surprise me that we don't have a great attendance here. We have 13 cars, but still, you know, not what we've seen in other Kamel GT races. But the thing that does surprise me about all that is it's the second round of the season. I feel that those who would want to be competitive in this championship would want to get out to an early points lead. But whatever the matter, it means there's a lot of points on the table for the drivers who are here today. And you talk about giving the iRacing Esports Network a shout-out, Joe. It's something I've noticed on iRacing's top 10 highlights, or even the top 10 lowlights sometimes at the end of each month, as this series regularly comes onto those highlight reels. We definitely see some drama in this series, whether we have a full field or not.
Certainly is the case a lot of times, as we watch Johnny Bell, who ran our lap in the Nissan, come around to take his second qualifying time, and it is not faster, so he'll stay P6. Justin Albrecht holds the provisional pole in the GTP class, and Rob Olenek, much like we saw last week, continuing his form, he holds the pole down in the GTOs. We're still waiting on Tanner McCullough to get time on the board, and he's certainly not going to get one this time, because that first lap he must have had an off. That brings me to an interesting point here. You have a fair bit of experience at this track, Sam, and it seems like off tracks, the slowdown penalties play a big part in how these races unfold. Yeah,
that's certainly true, and obviously Johnny Bell has a time in, so he must have had the lap cleaner than what you saw on the lap guide. I do want to keep half an eye on Tanner McCullough, though, because I was actually in a practice session just half an hour ago reminding myself of a couple points on this track, and I noticed he did seem to be struggling, so I hope he's got a couple of things sorted out, maybe just testing the waters, and we'll see him on top form today.
Well, he's abandoned the lap apparently because he's sent it into the wall. So Tanner is going to start at the back of his field as Johnny Bell's just getting a little bit more practice in. I guess practicing the pit entry. Hopefully he doesn't have to use that practice today. As I mentioned, there's no scheduled stops. So at this point, everybody has put their laps in. It is essentially just everyone getting a little bit more warm-up in. This is John Keefe you see on screen, who missed his second lap as well, but a 1:14.7 was good enough for fourth on the grid. We Have a few fast drivers missing out there today, I do notice. So this could be an open goal for a few people to try and get one in. Looks like everybody is now coming into the pits and is done for the day. So let's go through our starting grid before they get gridded up here. Justin Albrecht is going to be on the pole with Phil Lake starting on the outside of him. Phil is overdue for a win, and Martin Krejcik will be P3. Then in fourth, it'll be John Keefe with the inside of row 3, having Fabian Jungbluth there. Johnny Bell will start on the outside of that row. And a newcomer that I don't recall seeing driving in the broadcast races, Peter Mischek, will be starting in 7th. He will be followed by Tanner McCullough, who we mentioned did not get a time in. Sam?
Yeah, here over in our GTO class, we have Rob Olyanek on the pole ahead of Nicholas McCannos. Ove Trandre will be starting 3rd in class. He'll actually be 11th overall once you move Tanner McCullough up. And then the final row will be Simo Raba and Michael Haynes. So once again, even if one of our Audis crashes out on the opening lap, we're still going to get a top 5 out of it. So lots of points on the table here.
Yeah, looks like we'll actually get a full pace lap. Thought maybe we'd start a little bit later in the lap, but the Porsche pace car is going to take them around for one full circuit. That gives us some time to talk a little bit about this track, Sam. One thing that always strikes me about here is some of these curves seem a little bit nasty. Are there any ones in particular that either class needs to watch out for?
Well, once you get through the first few turns, you get up to that first chicane, that one is especially nasty. It can launch you if you overshoot it. You can spin off if you undershoot it. The second chicane, there's cut course penalties there if you get that wrong. It's tricky, but it's a little bit more forgiving. It's almost like sometimes it's easier to get it wrong, but you still survive. That first chicane that they come up to, and we'll get a good look at them here during the pace lap, that's the one where you're holding on to dear life sometimes.
Yeah, I know I've destroyed a few cars coming over that one over the years. So we watch the GTPs take off and work their way down through Erst, one of the spots we expect maybe a few overtakes to happen. And they'll switch back into 3 right-handers in a row here. Certainly going to be testing the downforce of these prototypes with the ground effects that they use. This track, of course, known for a little bit of tragedy, unfortunately. Probably most famous for the death of Gilles Villeneuve happening here back in the 80s in Formula One. In 1982, and that black spot really is unfortunate because it has put on a good show for us, especially here on iRacing, and produced some really good racing in real life despite the chicanes. But it's in the beautiful Belgian countryside out here, and hopefully we'll have a good one out today as we check out the GTOs behind our pole sitter Rob Olenick, now leading up to that Kleine chicane.
Yeah, and the other tricky thing about this chicane trail, you can see how long we've been riding on the rear wing of this Audi here. That's a long straight. The cars are carrying a lot of speed into this chicane. You can see it definitely doesn't have a good flow to it. You can screw it up in so many ways, and now we jump back up to the GTPs. They're going through the second chicane. You can see it's not the prettiest looking set of corners in the world, but you're not carrying as much entry speed. It's a little bit uphill. You've got a shorter run from the previous corner, so like I say, that's it's definitely a part of a course that you want to get right. But here's another thing, Joe. I mentioned I was practicing about half an hour ago. This right-hander here, normally this turn gets overlooked. It's just a 90-degree right-hander. What could go wrong? These cars go so slow through this turn, and they've got so much power in them. We're down for this long front straight. They can easily wheel spin and get that wrong.
Something to keep an eye on for sure. But they're almost done with this pace lap. So the Porsche pace car will peel in as they come on through the X chicane, and it is going to be our pole sitter, Justin Albrecht, who has control of the field. He's stacking them up, though. Now he goes, waiting to see that he can get a good jump, and he does. Phil Lake falls back in a second. It is a battle for third between John Keefe and Martin Krejcik. Keefe is going to come out on top. Let's head to the GTOs.
Well, there's already a battle for the lead maybe in GTOs. They all went single file through the chicane there, coming to the start line, but Rob Oljanek sliding around a little bit. They're packed up first, second and third. Michael Haynes has actually already had an off. He had an off coming to the green flag, but he gets back on track. It just drops him back to last.
The top three have a little bit of a breakaway. That is Olenek, Mukanos, and Trangarade stretching away from the rest of the field. They come up to the Kleine chicane for the first time. We ride on board with Ove. A little bit of a peek to the inside from Nick, but nothing doing there.
All these drivers minding their P's and Q's early on, Joe. They know you've got to race the track rather than the other cars around here. Sometimes the easiest way to make a pass is to just pressure the car in front of you into a mistake.
Not missing anything up at the front for the GTPs. This is really our closest battle. Olenek leading ahead of Mukanos and Trangarade. They hit the Boulderberg hairpin for the first time, and nobody makes a move quite yet. Oh, but a lot of wheel spin off the corner for Ove Trangarade, and he loses out.
It's the first lap complete for the GTPs already. The GTO field coming through now. They're about to put lap 1 down on the board. You can see our clock running down from 40 minutes in the top left corner of your screen. This will be about a 32 lap race.
I've been keeping an eye on Tanner McCullough because I expected him to make a climb through the field. He did get by Peter Mischek, and now he's going to try and get one on Johnny Bell. He outbreaks him down into the Kleine chicane. He's clean through there. Beautiful move from the number 2 actually.
Yeah, the problem is, Joe, this is a challenging circuit, and he's obviously been having difficulties in practice and also qualifying. He seems to be under control now, but unfortunately with these cars, it only takes one minor miscue, and we got one.
Well, that sets him back all the way to the back of the field already. Let's watch the replay, Tanner, see if we can figure out what exactly happened. We're on board the Canadian. Maybe a little bit too much of that power you were talking about?
Yeah, that would be my guess.
It looked like on
Yeah,
entry,
it looks like
maybe.
it just got loose. Yeah.
Well, the setup not to his liking. He's 6 seconds behind, and he's got some work to do. Let's jump back to the top 3 in the GTOs. And Rob Olenek still leads the same as it was, ahead of Mukanos, ahead of Trangarade. Ove's got his car back together, has regained the ground. They sit equidistant apart at just about half a second away from one another, contesting this podium position.
Yeah, Nicholas Mukanos has been sticking his nose out. He's letting Rob know that he's there. He just hasn't done anything with him yet. You see the similar paint schemes. They are teammates, so he's probably not going to want to wreck him. But if he can, you know, intimidate him, maybe just make him slip up a little bit, that'd be worth a position. They also, I'm sure, want to try and keep Ove Trangarade back there in 3rd position. Also, the other thing I've noticed right now, Joe, is that there is a lot of cloud cover on the circuit. I wonder who's going to benefit from that. Oh, heavy, and Rob goes off. He was heavy over the curbs and into the wall.
Just barely touches it. Not on the tires, though, so not sure how soft of a hit that is. Look at how long it's taken to get turned around as we go to replay now. He's losing a ton of time here.
Yeah, he
Watch the
just...
hands. Go ahead.
And this is a combination of this chicane not being kind to mistakes and Nicholas Mukanos kind of pressuring him into a mistake, to be honest. He just turned in a tiny bit too early and he never really got it back.
So he does recover to 3rd. Michael Haynes does not manage to overtake him, but he's a whole 18, almost 19 seconds behind Ove. It's essentially now probably going to be a 2-horse race for the lead in the GTOs as we rejoin Trangarade now in 2nd, Mukanos in 1st.
The last place GTO of Simo Rabe must have had an off at some point. He just really got in the way of the GTP leaders. The gap between Justin Ulbrich and Philip Blake was a second. It is now stretched out to over 3 seconds. Philip Blake really got stuck behind him at the worst part of the circuit.
There's more drivers going by. That was Cray Tariq, now John Keefe. And he's joined by Fabian Jungbluth there in P5. Rob is going to stay out, though. The car isn't damaged enough that he needs to come in.
He scrubbed off a lot of speed before he got into the wall. Problem is, he's trying to do the math right here, about 20-30 seconds back of Nicholas Mukanos now.
Certainly is a long ways behind. We're barely 5 minutes into this race as we ride on board with Jungbluth, looking ahead at John Keefe. Coming off of Bianchi and down into Kleine. It's not close enough this time through, but both are safely through that first chicane.
Keefe and Jungbluth for 4th place in GTP might be one of the closer battles we have out there on the track right now. But again, this early in the race, it's so easy to make mistakes here. I almost wouldn't worry about fighting for positions.
Sorry, speaking of which, Martin Krajcik must have made a mistake because he just absolutely got blown by John Keefe. Oh, he got held up, we understand, by the traffic.
All right, well, that's another way to make a pass. And now, all of a sudden, we have John Keefe in 3rd. Martin is down to 4th, and Jungbluth is in 5th. And now we have, and you see there on the replay why. Now we have one thing we haven't had so far this race, and that's a ticked-off driver. And we'll see if that helps or hurts him in getting 3rd place back.
Yeah, that was just an unfortunate miscommunication between both drivers. Everybody going a little bit wide coming out of Bianchi as they both went to the inside, unfortunately, at the same time, and Krajcik got checked up for that. So that moves him down to P4, John Keefe up to 3rd. Of course, traffic giveth and traffic taketh. The same thing could easily happen to John.
Yeah, the nice thing for our 2 leaders now is if the same thing happens to them, they've got almost a 10-second buffer over everybody else. So we certainly have a bit of a battle for the lead in, well, a battle for the lead in GTO. I wouldn't say a battle for the lead in GTP, but certainly Justin Ulbrich has got to keep an eye on his relative there. And then we certainly have a battle for 3rd in GTP right now, although they're holding station while they're in clear traffic.
Yeah, Keefe making good... Oh, wait,
Keefe really slow. You know what? He slowed down. Yeah, out of the last chicane.
You and I started thinking the exact same thing, and that cost him that spot right back. Krajcik up there, Jungbluth to his inside as they come through Canal. They're going to go through Bianchi too wide potentially as they've got traffic up in front of them. Krajcik caught up once again. Keefe thinks about splitting the middle, thinks better of it, stays behind his rival. Looks to the inside as they come down to the Kleine chicane. He is weaving back and forth, gets into the back of him. That shoves him over the curb. Somehow Krajcik holds control of the car, and that keeps Martin in 3rd, John in 4th, and Fabian in 5th after all is said and done.
I am trying to work out how Martin does not have a slowdown unless he does and he just has chose not to serve it yet. Because he was way over that curb in the chicane.
That was a wild bit of action for half a lap. Everybody's still running, thankfully. That car that they were lapping too, we should mention, was Rob Olenek, our 3rd place in the GTOs. Thankfully didn't have anyone to battle with, but he was desperately trying to get out of everybody's way.
Here, and it might be because he stuck to the near side of the sausage curbs that he probably got away without getting the slowdown penalty there. Meanwhile, is this our GTO leaders having one of the GTP cars go through them? You see there's still Mukanos in front, Trendray behind.
That was Phil Lake coming through. Ingrid just hovering in the background. Maybe waiting for something similar like we saw with Olenek for Nick Mukanos to have an error. As actually Nick went a little defensive down there into the 2nd chicane.
The GTP leaders have just lapped these two, so that tells you how much quicker those cars are than the Audis around this circuit, and also how small this circuit is.
Yeah, certainly not terribly long. It's 2.5 miles. As that battle continues for the lead. Trangaré just hovering at about half a second behind Nick Mukanos. Everywhere he goes, just stalking him, making sure that he keeps him honest, and maybe he'll get aggressive towards the end. We'll wait and see. It's a little close down into Erst, but still can't find an opportunity.
No real point to wait to make a pass around here unless you just don't want the pressure of being the leading car. It's not exactly like you can make a last lap slingshot work anywhere on this circuit. You've got to take the opportunity when it comes. Right now though, Nicholas Mukanos has just had a pretty good race, but the opportunity might be coming with all these GTP cars catching them at a horrible part of the circuit. This is at battle for third.
Yeah, Martin Krejcik comes up behind Trangaré. He's going to look around the outside. He gets one, but he doesn't get two. John Keefe going to try and follow him through. Oh, that's got to be a slowdown for Martin Krejcik, who goes way off at the second apex. Did he not? No, maybe not.
I think he slowed up enough. He knew he would have got slowed down if he didn't slow up. He jumped on the brakes. I think he got away with it. Now he gets by the lead GTO. Keefe, a little bit on the loud pedal there. I thought he had a bit of oversteer, getting quite close to one of the Audis as they go down the back straight. I guess it's the front straight now with the chicane taken out of it.
And he stays relatively close to Martin Krejcik, but they did drop Fabian Jungbluth by a significant margin through that traffic.
I'll tell you what, one thing I learned from driving this car around here, Joe, a few moments ago, the amount of, threshold braking you have to do for these slow chicanes. These prototype cars can stop quite well, so if you realise you're going to go off, you can recover from it. You can slam on the brakes and stop that from happening. The problem is you don't want to risk a car behind passing you. And boy, and off behind them there, our fifth place car, Jungbluth, just went off over the chicane. That'll be a slowdown.
Absolutely. He really cut it that time. Feel pretty certain about him having to give up time on that one. And as all this is happening, Albrecht, by the way, is still our leader in the prototypes, and Mukanos still our leader in the not missing much on either of those. Credit to Phil Lake for hovering around in second place in the prototypes, about 2.5 seconds back, but he's got to start hustling and challenge Justin for that lead if he wants. The one thing that disappoints me in Zolder and in iRacing here, Sam, is that they may have scanned it a little bit too early, because they've since added Rallycross to the game here, and as I understand, there is a Rallycross course at Zolder, is there not?
I'll take your word for it. There's plenty of grass and gravel around there to make it work.
Simo Raba nearly got sideswiped by John Keefe. I don't know if we have time to get a replay from on board, but boy, John cut it awful close coming through Bianchi. Unfortunately, it looks like we won't be able to catch that replay. Thankfully, he lives to fight another day and stays within touch of Martin. So out of Turleman and turn 7 rather. Down into turn 8 here, Boulderberg. The sharp hairpin. And John's starting to lose touch slightly with Martin now. This lap, for some reason, Fabian is really caught him. So, across the line for yet another lap completed. Getting close to the halfway point now. 20 minutes in will get us partway through this thing. Right on board, or we're riding on board with Fabian Jungbluth giving chase to third and fourth. Fans of Tanner McCullough, bad news. He has recently taken it into the pits. I'm checking to see if I can find out what exactly happened. This Seems to have been a bit ago, so not sure that we'll get a replay. Looks like it was the final chicane. And weirdly, he hit the wall and then took it backwards on track, actually a fair bit, to get it into the pit lane, so that he didn't have to do a full lap.
Worth noting, Zolder actually goes a little bit faster this lap, but Philip Lake has brought in the gap to the race leader a tiny bit. It was up to 3 seconds and it was down to 2.5 seconds. So still, even though it's not a battle right now, Justin's, and here we go, a comparison of our lap times, and you can see there, they've been trading it back and forth a little bit.
It looks like most of it really came from lap 10 there. He lost half a second. I'm going to guess that that is due to some lap traffic being in Justin's way. Otherwise, he was 3 of those 5 laps quicker than the likes of Phil Lake.
Well, they'll catch more lap traffic again, Joe, because even our GTO leaders, Nicholas McCannos and Ove Trandre, they were lapped down within 15 minutes of this race. Well, 15 minutes times 3 is a 45... Well, actually, no, it's a 40-minute race. So still, these GTP leaders are going to have to lap every single GTO car 1 more, if not 2 more times. And that could certainly result in some changes. If you know, it's not a big deal when they catch them at this part of a circuit, as we're seeing on screen here. The GTOs can just pull out the way, or the GTPs can pull to the inside and make the pass. But we've seen that when they catch them on the backside of the circuit into the woods, that's where we get into trouble.
Phil Lake really slicing through them as we rode on board. He stays at about those 2.3 seconds. He's not giving up on this win. I have a feeling that Phil Lake is pretty hungry for a victory. He did get, I believe it was 1 or 2 of them at the very end of last season. But despite challenging for the championship all the way to the end of the season, he just could not seem to get the luck on his side to take a victory.
I think Martin Kredrick will be quite happy if he comes out of this with a 3rd place finish after all the drama the front end of his tic-tac machine has seen here today. Okay, that's not tic-tac apparently. Tin Tao, okay.
Yes, it's a uncopyrighted paint scheme, that Tin Tao. The famous Tin Tao.
I was going to say, I was trying to see how tic-tac had worked its way into the iRacing esports filters.
So, as Martin
anyway,
finally finds himself some free track.
Yeah, and I'm sure his breath is smelling quite nice up here in 3rd position. Oh, and we actually have something going on, so...
Yeah, we've got Nick Mukanos caught by Trangrate, and they've got Peter Mischek in there trying to lap them. I was just thinking earlier, a big mistake under braking from Nick Mukanos. Almost lost the car, but somehow finds the apex. Ooh, this is getting tense, and Mischek is being very, very patient back here. He himself is being lapped by, I believe that's Phil Lake back there. No, that's Albrecht, actually. That's our
just
leader.
Blinked out there quite a bit.
Getting all incredibly convoluted. So Mischek's going to stay to the side. Albrecht pulls through as they hit the final chicane, the Ick chicane. Now he gets the power down and is able to overtake his teammate, letting him go by. This has actually worked out much more in favor of Mukanos. Look at how far back Trangrate is.
Oh, 3 wide. Philip Blake wants so. Philip Blake gets run off course. He had been running down the race leader. He was trying to gain speed, gain time on the race leader through all the traffic, and simply as they were 3 wide, the lap GTP did not see him because he's outside.
Mischek was trying to make lose as little time rather as he could, just like Phil Lake was, and as they split them, they eventually came back together. Lake went off track, and what was a 2-second gap has now extended to 5 seconds. That was costly.
Yeah, but the reason Lake was so determined to try and get by them all was he had got it down to 1 second. Dolbrecht had not gotten through that pack of cars very quickly, so the gap had gone down from 2 to 1 seconds, but now Philip Lake gets run off course, is back up to 5, and we know we're losing screen for just a moment. We will be back here momentarily. The battles have broke up, so everyone's taken a bit of a breather. Then we'll get pictures back for you because we do have a battle for the GTO lead. And also still this battle for 3rd, 4th and 5th in GTP, I'm sure will still need to be resolved.
Certainly does. They've got more lap traffic. Every bit of lap traffic is another potential opportunity. It's Rob Olenek up ahead of them. Krejcik trying to extend the gap so that in case he gets held up, he doesn't open the door for John Keefe. He's going to look to the inside, down through Erst. Keefe still gaining time anyways, but not enough time. Down and around through Sterrenwacht and Canal. John has been wanting this position. He had it briefly, and then unfortunately had to give it back. I think it's been a commendable job by Krejcik, honestly.
All that wonderful breath and no one around him to smell it right now. It's got a bit of a gap back to 4th place.
Ooh, nicely done by Simo Raba. Put the car in a perfect position. Keefe lost very little time. Same thing with Jungbluth sneaking through there.
Confirmation, Tanner McAuliffe has retired from the race, so down to 12 cars, 7 GTPs and 5 GTOs.
Yep, still 12 cars circulating around this track. Boy, there's been a lot of ebb and flow, which I guess isn't too surprising at this track, between this battle for 3rd. Oh, and going wide through Erst, or was that a slowdown maybe from John Keefe? This gives Jungbluth 4th place, whichever the case.
Now the big question becomes, is Jungbluth able to run down Martin? Because he's been stuck back in 5th there all race. Does he have anything that he hasn't shown us yet?
Good question. Curious to see if he could maybe try and run down and be more decisive with Martin in that number 9. Ooh, and things have gotten tight once again with the GTOs. Mukanos being caught by Trangarade.
Trangarade got a little bit of a curb there going through that right-hander. Bit of wheel spin that allows Mukanos to escape a bit. I know this race isn't over yet and there could be drinks in him, but so far the first 2/3 of this race, I don't think Mukanos has put the wheel wrong. He pressured Olenek to get the lead, and he's withstood the pressure from Trangarade since he's been in the lead. So far it's paying off with the number 1 on his position ticker, and let's see if he can... very close moment it looked like there between Jungbluth and Trangarade.
And Jungbluth did a great job getting by. Keefe unfortunately catches him at just the wrong moment through Bianchi. He's going to look down to the inside and sneak through, but not without the damage done, as he's now got a 1.5 seconds to make up on Fabian. But they leave our leaders alone in the GTO to settle their own battle once more. Trangarade not able to take advantage of the 2 prototypes coming through. We're down to 16 minutes left to go. The clock is ticking away and time is running out for these drivers to try and make overtakes. Down through the hairpin once more. Trangarade seems to, he's tantalizingly close at times, but it's almost like once he gets close enough, there's just nothing for him to try and get that last little bit done.
We've seen Trangarade win a Lotus 49 race from 8th place in the final turn, so it will never count them out. Granted, that was Talladega, but...
Yeah, a little bit of special circumstances. This one a little bit different. Well, he's getting awful closer. This is getting down to just a couple car lengths, even on the straightaways. Let's see if he can do anything out of Bianchi. This is one of the places where passes often happen. Just not a good enough run off the corner.
Yeah, Trantray's been around. I mean, he knows what he's got to do. He's been hanging too close for too long behind Mucanos to not do nothing. He knows his job is to try and win this race. It's early in the season, so you definitely want to win to try and give you some bragging rights in the points early on in the season. But how does he do it? He hasn't been able to make Mucanos crack yet. He might have to do it the hard way, and that Zolder, that's very hard indeed.
Well, unfortunately for Ove, Nick Mucanos just missed out on the championship last season to Rob Olenek, who now he's going to have a nice little points haul over if he holds on to this first place. So I really think that Nick's going to keep a firm grasp on this thing. Or at least he's going to be very determined to do so, so that he doesn't lose, or can get maximum points, rather, I should say, over Ove Trangarade, or excuse me, over Rob Olenek, in order to get himself an opportunity to take the championship this season. We switched back to Fabian Jungbluth, who, makes a mistake coming out of the Kleine chicane and makes an easy opportunity for John Keefe.
Yeah, I wondered if Jungbluth would be... Oh, and off goes Keefe. He'll have to give that up, and sure enough, there goes Olenek. Sorry, Jungbluth rather. I wondered if Jungbluth would have the pace to run Martin down, but no, and especially with this trading back and forth, this is just giving Martin Kredrick third position right now.
Yep, a little bit of after you for Keefe and Jungbluth here. John, with a good run coming off the Ick chicane. He looks to the inside at the last moment, but comes back to the racing line and thinks better of it.
Getting into the closing stages of a race now. You can see the gap between the two GTP leaders has came down a little bit, but still, as long as Justin doesn't make a mistake, that 6-second gap should be manageable. But, you know, he's just got to be careful around these lap cars. We've seen definitely plenty of scary moments out there today.
Yeah, I guess at any moment we could see someone clip the curb wrong, get a cut course chicane. It's going to all swing right back in favor of somebody else. So as much as I talk about drivers needing to hurry to make something happen, it is certainly not a doomsday scenario yet as we get yet more cloud cover. Temperatures have been relatively cool out here all day.
Whoa! Philip Lake just had a great save, and we're going to get it on replay when we finish this GTO battle, because Trantere was looking for the lead there.
Meanwhile, on screen, this battle between Trangarade and Mucanos getting incredibly tight, coming down to the hairpin. Does Ove maybe start to poke his nose out? No, he's going to stay in line, maybe looking for the launch off this tight right-hander. Still nothing doing.
Open setup, so that could always be the blame. And let's have a look at this replay here.
I believe this was the moment with Lake that you caught.
Yeah, so he's dealing with some lap traffic. You see, in a couple of turns' time, he clips the grass and he almost spins it.
Stedenbach, and now Johnny tries to stay out of the way. Bianchi, yep, look at that. Outside of the track, catches him way off guard. Some very fast hands. And we need to come back live because I think Trankarade's finally on the go as he puts a threat on Nick Mucanos into the Kleine chicane, but can't make the pass happen. He's got the bit between his teeth now.
Yeah, he was definitely running a different line than Mukanos down the back straight, making Mukanos check his mirrors, think about what he's doing. I wouldn't say he was alongside him per se, but he was as close as he could get being alongside without actually being there. So Trentray is definitely turning up the wick a little bit, and they have some traffic coming by them here. Let's see how this affects things.
That is Phil Lake. Just getting up to the back of Trangrade. He gets through him, but then he gets held up through the Ick chicane. Doesn't hold up the battle, but certainly costs himself a few seconds.
GTO leaders also coming up here to lap the slower GTO of Michael Haynes, who goes off, runs through the gravel, and lets them by.
Doesn't want anything to do with deciding how this battle plays out. Less than 10 minutes to go. Looks like Ove backs off slightly, resets, and sees if he can get another opportunity later. They're going to be caught by Johnny Bell here soon. Will this slow up Mukanos a little bit, or will it hurt Ove Trangrade more?
You can see in the top left corner of your screen, we're not really missing anything in the battle for third for GTP. In fact, it's broken up quite a bit. Oh, and we have a car off.
Check has had a misstep coming through Butte. Let's see if we can find what happened as he gets the car turned around.
He's got a crumpled up fender.
It was, boy, it happened quite a while ago. He was trying to limp this car back. It all started here in the Kleine chicane. Here we go. Well, just lost it on exit, and then he must have clipped the curb just right or something, because, well, no, I guess he just goosed it too hard, because he'll just spin it around here and unfortunately put it in a very awkward spot, actually a very blind crest, as he had to do an Austin Powers to get it turned around. Thankfully, didn't get hit by anybody.
Oh, got quite close for one of the GTPs. That's why there's an F3 box, and that's why they tell you to check it. Fortunately, he must have checked it just enough, because I don't think any of those cars got any more tore up. Alright, these two don't have to check their F3 boxes. They know what the situation is. As the sun comes back out, how will that affect their handling? Yes, they do pick up an incident point for running in the gravel. No, that doesn't stop them from doing it.
Well, they have no incident limit on this series, we should point out. Trangrade awful close this time. I wonder if he's going to have another go at him as they come up to Turleman. A little bit of a defensive move from Mukanos into this second chicane. And that doesn't give an opportunity to Trangrade quite yet.
Well, now the clock's about to enter the danger zone, really. I mean, we're definitely within the closing stages of this race now. Mukanos hasn't succumbed to the pressure at all. Trantre really needs to make a move stick. The closest we've seen him get is the run out of out of Bianchi down the back straight into the chicane. I don't know if that straight's long enough, though, where you can make something happen. Mukanos is going defensive here. Trantre looking down the inside here, actually. I think Mukanos will be able to hold him off. That's the best challenge Trantre has given.
He's going to try a long way around coming through Stardenvacht. And I don't think there's just enough grip on the outside. But he tries to carry the momentum, maybe up to Bianchi, goes all the way, dipping wheels into the grass in that corner, holds onto it. He is, whoa, using the four-wheel drive through the gravel. That gives him the opportunity, takes a poke, but comes back to the racing line.
Well, the great finish we are setting up here in the Kamel GT Rallycross Championship at Zolder. Nicholas Mukanos and Ove Trantre, and don't be surprised if you see Trantre do that every single lap until he finally makes something happen or the checkered flag falls.
You know, interesting thing I'm noticing about this second chicane into Turleman, Mukanos keeps going defensive, and it looks like it slows him up a little bit more than Trangrade, but it looks like he parks it on that second apex, and poor Ove has nowhere to go every single time.
This is really the one battle we have left on track still, but it's definitely a fun one to watch. We can keep our cameras on here for the next 5.5 minutes. Trandre hopes that isn't that long. He hopes to have Mucanos behind him way before then. They have some traffic catching up with them. Let's see how this changes since.
That's Martin Krejcik. He's not in a battle. That's a lapped car back there. That's Mischeck. So Martin really didn't need to affect that, but he's going to try and swing around. Mischeck follows him through. Splits them for a little bit. Is he going to be able to get by without interrupting this? He's lacking some speed on the straight. Oh, boy.
Oh, and Trandre gets way sideways and jumps over the curb, but does he have to serve a slowdown? There's a big question here, because he might still be able to recover that gap if he doesn't have to. It's up to about 1.5 seconds. Not the end of the world, I don't think.
Watching from on board. Maybe he just got put off a little bit. Maybe he touched the grass. Hard to tell from the onboard. He only lost to about 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds back now. Like you said, not the end of the world, but the way that he was struggling to try and get by Nick, this takes away precious opportunities as yet more of the cars go by. That's Keefe and Jungbluth still fighting for P4.
Well, Nick is going to have to hope that these two cars both clear him before they get to turn 1, and they do. And that's going to help Nicholas out a little bit. So now Trandre really needs to drive hard to run down that gap.
Jungbluth, as we ride on board the 007 camp, looking back at Keefe. John's starting to put a little bit of a threat on here in the final minutes. Could see a pass now that we've been relieved of that battle for the lead in the GTOs, potentially for P4. Down in the GTP, Simo Raba just ahead of them. Hopefully he'll be able to stay out of the way. Another good run from John Keefe, a fantastic run coming out of the Kleine chicane. Not good enough of one, though, as he runs out of track.
Yeah, I really thought this battle was done and dusted. These two had broken up by about a second a little while ago, but no, sure enough, it's back on and probably going to be going on to the checkered flag in just about 2 or 3 laps time. Whoa, much later on the brakes there was John Keefe. Almost gave Fabian one up the back.
And they've got lap traffic of their own class up ahead. Peter Mischeck. Sometimes it can be harder to overtake a car within your own class. Ooh, John looking good here off of the chicane. He's stalking him, ducks to the inside, looking to try to outbrake him into Urs, but he brakes way late. Somehow he keeps it on the track. So does Jungbluth, though, holding on around the outside. They switch back into Sterrenwacht, and it's in favor of Jungbluth now. But the momentum comes forward for John Keefe around Canal, still side by side as they work through Bianchi. They brush doors just barely, and Jungbluth has to give it up.
And what's even better is I've got no idea how many laps are left, because Justin Albrecht just crossed the line with 2.5 minutes to go. So that could be 2 laps, that could be 3 laps. These drivers are just going to have to hope they're out in front at the right time as the lap car goes over the curb, lets them both by.
That was gutsy stuff from John Keefe, and from what we've seen on pace, it seems like they can't get away from each other. So Jungbluth holding on to within about 0.4 of a second. Going to try and get this one back. "13 cars or 50 cars? I don't think it matters, Sam. They give us a good show here in Camel."
Yeah, absolutely. I think as unpopular as Zolder can be among some drivers, I think this is a good car-track combination because it is so unpredictable. These cars have so much power in them that can lead to wheel spin, and it really punishes mistakes. Now, Albrecht is coming across the line right now, and there's just a little under 1:14, 1:13 left on the clock, so I think he might be on the final lap. It's going to be close, to be honest.
Depends on when iRacing gives them that white flag. We're keeping an eye on them just in case. This will be a nice victory lap for Justin Albrecht. He only comes in sporadically here for Dirty Torque on these broadcast races, but when he does, he's usually a factor for the win. He's left Philip Lake behind. He's managed the traffic. He's managed the chicanes. He's controlled this car magnificently out here today after putting it on pole. Can this Nissan bring it home? And does he have 1 lap? Or rather, I should say, does he have half a lap or 1.5 laps left to go.
The battles we've been keeping an eye on are a little broken up right now. So the leaders of those battles will be hoping he's coming to the checkered. The drivers behind will be hoping, no, one more lap, please, one more lap. And let's make sure if we do get an extra lap, everyone's got enough fuel.
It's through the chicane. He is really swinging it through. And this is it. It is a victory for Justin Albrecht today in the GTPs. Mukanos follows him home
off.
as Mukanos takes the victory. Phil Lake is going to be able to get second place. He is well far ahead of Martin Krejcik, so no dramas there.
Yeah, right. Him and Mukanos were pretty close on track there. Philip Lake had a very scary off in the final chicane and somehow just escaped with a scratch.
On the replay now through X. Woo. Boy, we're seeing a lot of cars have last lap hits with the tires and then finishing just fine today. Meanwhile, if we come back live, Jungbluth and Keefe are still finishing. So this isn't over, but Keefe has pulled a nice little gap to Jungbluth. And indeed, he's going to come across the line with a 4th place. That is going to finish the last of our cars. So let's take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel, where we'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews. On screen, you'll see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Back to Circuit Zolder. We just watched round 2 in the Kamel GT series, and Justin Albrecht got a victory here in Belgium. He finished about 13 seconds ahead of Phil Lake, though for much of the race it was 2 seconds, then it was 5, and then Phil unfortunately had a little bit of a whoopsie at the end and limped it home. Martin Krejcik way behind him in P3. Once he managed to get by Keith and Jungbluth, he finally solidified that podium and ran away with it. Keith took 4th, just edging out Fabian Jungbluth, who takes the top 5. Johnny Bell, first car a lap down, finishes 6th, and Peter Mischek 7th. Tanner McCullough was a DNF, unfortunately. Sam?
The 5-car GTO field is headed by Nicholas Mukanos and Ove Trandre and Rob Olyanek, both of which at some point during the race would have wanted or hoped for the victory. Finishing 2nd and 3rd positions respectively, rounding out the podium. Simo Raba wins the battle for the rest in 4th place ahead of Michael Haynes.
So with that, we've got a couple of our drivers ready to talk to us, including our winner in the GTOs, Nick Mukanos. Let's pull Nick in and talk about having to withstand some incredible pressure. You inherited the lead a little bit when your teammate fell by the wayside, but boy, Ove made you work to keep that lead.
Yeah, I was trying not to do exactly what Rob ended up doing, and then Ove was right on me. We're usually pretty close, and I just had to make my car as big as possible.
It did seem like you were defending a few times down into the second chicane. Did you feel confident about managing to hold him back, or were you honestly nervous about being able to keep him there for the entire race?
I felt good in the beginning, but then I got like a 2-second gap somehow, and he caught right back up, so that's when I started to sweat it out.
I can understand that when you see that sort of pace in his hands, especially Ove with how talented he is. This round was a little lightly attended, but how do you rate this win for yourself? Do you still feel pretty proud of this one?
Yeah, there was a lot of people missing, but I still feel proud about it. It was a battle until the end, and Ove's really good. Rob's really good. There's a lot of fast people still to join.
Yeah, I'd say you should be proud of this one, especially at a difficult track like this. Congratulations, Nick, winning round 2. Hopefully we'll see you back in round 3.
Yep, thanks a lot, guys.
That was our winner in GTOs. Sam has caught up with 2nd place in the GTPs, Phil Lake.
Yeah, Phil, 2nd place obviously looks good on paper, but how bummed are you that you didn't get the win here today?
Yeah, pretty disappointed. I had really strong pace this week, and I was looking forward to having a good fight with Justin actually, and I just got caught up in some traffic like really early on and lost 2 or 3 seconds, and then from there it was just like a out of control spiral of everything that could go wrong went wrong, and yeah, held on to 2nd though, so happy with that.
Yeah, we saw the 3-wide pass that went on with the GTO in the middle, a lap GTP on the inside and you on the outside, and kind of ended up in calamity there. Did that kind of seal the deal? Did you think, oh, well, I'm just driving for 2nd after this point, or were you still trying to get back up there?
No, I never stop chasing the leader for a couple of reasons. Just, you know, if Justin had the same issue, then the gap would have closed back up. And also, if you kind of roll off to 95% or whatever, so I usually start making more mistakes then. So I like to stay 100% the whole race.
Well, that makes sense, because we definitely saw a couple moments where you were right on the limit, almost had a couple more scares. Do you want to talk to us about that moment where you had the car halfway sideways going through Bianchi, the turn before the back straight there, and also you crossed the finish line in style as well?
Yeah, I was pushing pretty hard. I actually got the gap back down from 10 seconds or so to about 6. I think Justin had slowed down at that point. But yeah, I had a few scares. I put a wheel on the grass in Bianchi and managed to save the car. And then, yeah, the last chicane I kind of switched off and it bit me again. So yeah, it was a race to forget. But 2nd isn't bad for points, so I'll take that.
All right. Well, congrats on the podium. Commiserations. It's not the top step, but we'll see if you can get it done in Saturday.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
That was our 2nd place finisher in GTP, Phil Lake. Sure.
Yep, I think he's taken a pragmatic view of things since last season he wasn't facing off against Albrecht for the championship. probably doesn't expect to this season if Justin's attendance is the same, but that's going to wrap it up for us, including a few thank yous off to the Kamel GT series for bringing us back for another season of coverage, and to iRacing for putting us on the iRacing esports network. Make sure and subscribe when you get the opportunity just by hopping over to their YouTube page. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen, and additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Sam, Amjad, and Dougie, with a little bit of help from Stefan Schlacker back behind the scenes. And of course, if you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. The next race, we're heading over to Sam's neck of the woods. Snetterton holds the next round. That'll be Saturday, June 29th at 1 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.